Thank you everybody for coming. We have people all around from Europe, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, Slovakia, Bulgaria, where else? United Kingdom, United States. And thank you everybody for coming. Today's gonna be an awesome day. It's gonna be awesome. I love Mondays. Every Monday we have a great speaker, and today is no different. But before we start, we always go through the essentials. So your attitude and schedule. So the right attitude at the beginning ensures success at the end. Most of you have heard the story about David and Goliath, and so many soldiers saw that Goliath is so big, so it's very hard to take him down. But David saw that he's so big, he can't miss. So every opportunity has a difficulty, and every difficulty has an opportunity. And then taking ownership. Theodore Roosevelt said that do what you can with what you have and where you are. So at the moment you're taking ownership, you're in this call, you could go to watch a ball game or do something else, but you're taking responsibility, you're taking ownership because we all have big goals this summer. So it's all about doing the right thing at the right time. But now let's get down to business. So today we have an amazing keynote speaker. It's our own President Dan Moore. Dan Moore is so cool. Dan Moore grew up in northern New Mexico. He attended Harvard University, where he graduated with honors in 3 years instead of the usual 4. He also has an MBA from Vanderbilt University, where he was an honors graduate and a class speaker. He started in the business world the same way that tens of thousands of others over the years have, as a college student running his own business in Southwestern Advantage, summer sales, and business leadership program. He paid his Harvard tuition by selling educational products door to door and building sales teams, and was a top salesperson each year. Dan Moore has been invited as a keynote speaker to a number of organizations, both academic and professional. Located in the USA, United Kingdom, and many places in Europe. Dan Moore has trained more than 100,000 people how to sell, how to lead, and how to get on the path toward achieving their goals in life. As president at Southwestern Advantage, he is responsible for product development, sales training, public relations, business statistics, forecasting, and the development of new profit centers. In his spare time, he enjoys traveling. So far, Dan has logged more than 6 million air miles and has been into 49 states and 42 countries. Dan Moore plays guitar and the piano and is an avid runner. He has completed 21 half marathons since the age of 51 and also completed the New York City Marathon, finishing in the top half of 46,000 runners. He and his wife, Maria, have married for 43 years and they have 3 adult children. So please let me welcome our president, Dan Moore.
Well, thank you, Kenneth. That was very kind of you. Let me make a really good first impression by spending a lot of time on my phone. Let's see. Hey, I'll be with you guys in a minute. I'm really busy right now. Cool. Let's see. Okay, good. Yeah, how's that for a good first impression? It's so fun to be back with E1 this morning. I'm actually on the west coast of the United States right now in San Diego, California, where I'm meeting with student leaders today and tomorrow. So thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this whole presentation. I thought a lot about this presentation, the whole idea of trying to make good first impressions and trying to connect with people in a really positive way. And I thought I could do a really boring PowerPoint where I put all the slides on the screen and then talk about each one of the points and then put the next slide and talk about each one of those points. But that's called death by PowerPoint. And I think many of you have been in presentations like that. Okay, there's 5 points in my PowerPoint. Point 1, point 2, point 3. Kind of boring, kind of dull. So instead of doing something like that, I thought it would make more sense if we just had a conversation here, where I try to share with you some insights and perspectives on making a good first impression, how to connect with people. First of all, how many of you, or you can raise your hand because I can see all of you. I have cameras in your rooms right now, every one of you. I know you're drinking a beer. I know, I got it. You're having popcorn, drinking a beer, watching a movie, playing time with YouTube, but I see all of you. So How many of you are familiar with the book called Start with Why by Simon Sinek? Start with Why. If you're not familiar with the book, I'd recommend that you take a few minutes and watch his TED Talk or the 45-minute video by Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. If you don't really like to read, you'll really enjoy the TED Talk because it's only 18 minutes long. But Simon Sinek in his book, Start with Why, said the most important thing all of us should do when we're determining what is important in life is to start with our why, start with our reason, start with our purpose. Too many people say, well, what is it and how do you do it? But that really kind of misses the underlying motivation that comes from our hearts. And the heart is where the center of what is it that is important? What is my why? And so I'd like to start off this morning by starting with why in terms of making good first impressions and connecting with people. And I want to ask an honest question for you to think about, maybe discuss with people that you're with, and that is why? Why do you want to make a good first impression? Why do you want to connect with people in the first place? What is your motivation for that? If your main motivation to learn how to connect with people and how to make good first impressions is so that you can sell more product, build a bigger organization, be more successful financially, that's a one-star review. Because what that's saying is you're not really interested in connecting with people. What you're interested in is using people so that you can get ahead. It gets 1 star. There's some value, of course, in connecting to make more money. That's not a bad thing by itself. But that's not the deepest why to fully understand how to communicate and why it's important to do so. There's several other really, really valuable reasons. One of which is if we can learn how to connect with people of all types, we're going to be happier. Now, who believes in happiness? Yeah, big time. In fact, happiness for each one of us should be a 5-star review. And happiness does not necessarily mean the most money. In fact, there's lots of unhappy people that have lots of money. Happiness is an inner sense of satisfaction, an inner sense of peace. And when we really understand other people, when we can communicate with people, when we feel like we're on the same level, the same wavelength with those people, then we're going to be more happy. And we're going to have better relationships. We're going to have deeper conversations. And we're going to enjoy meeting random new people. And we're not going to just view them as a chance to make a sale or a chance to get something that we want. But instead, we're going to feel more comfortable in our own skins being part of the human race, which is a really cool thing. So another reason to really learn how to connect with people of all kinds is so that we can just be happier people. But there's really probably the deepest reason of all. Psychologists who study depression, discouragement, and people that want to give up on life often say that the lack of connection is one of the main causes of depression, even of suicide, the lack of connection with other people. On the other hand, the positive psychologists in the world that study happiness and joy and contribution say that one of the strengths that couples have that stay together for a long period of time, married couples, partners that are together for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, growing and happier and happier and happier, is that they are strongly connected to one another. Families that have connections stay closer together. And so when we learn how to connect, we actually can have a big impact on helping people accept themselves. In other words, learning how to connect can make the world better. And that gets 6-star review on a 5-star level. Instead, the idea of being a happier human because we just feel comfortable in our skin and we feel comfortable interacting with all kinds of other people. And above all, realizing that a strong connection can help someone else massively. Why these are the really, really important things. So this is a bit of the why. And if we may spend a lot of time really understanding our own motives, I think it's okay. But in the long run of life, Spencer Hayes taught me that the people that make the most money, that have the most success, that have the highest positions and the most rewards are the ones that make up their minds that they're going to serve others and have an impact on the world. And so when we do that well, the money will flow to you. And that's one of the great things about this whole process, which is really cool. Making the world better and at the same time providing for your family and your future financial success, kind of hard to beat those ideas. So really think hard about your why and have that strong, strong purpose to get better at this. So now let's talk about what. What does it mean to be connected or to have a good connection with someone else? It really means to be on the same wavelength. All right, wavelength. Now, many of you don't really understand what wavelength is, but in radio frequency, wavelength is the level at which a signal travels. And so if you're tuning in a radio, and some of you don't even know what a radio is because you do everything on Spotify, But if you tune in a radio to you have 93.7 and you have 92.7, it looks like it's the same level, but it's really not. And there's no way that those two are going to ever connect. So being on the same wavelength means that we're both on 92.7 FM. This means that we have a lot in common and that we have great rapport with what's happening. So connectedness with someone else means something that is first in common that we have with that person. So let's say, for example, that I've got this stone, and the only thing that they have in common is that each one has these four knobs here on the top. All right. Now they can come together like this and collect and click and click and collide. But sometimes they can interlace. And that's when we really have a great connection. So connection doesn't mean we're exactly like someone else. In fact, wouldn't the world be boring if we're exactly like someone else? Instead, it means that we can interact and overlap with other people and fit in a really cool way that makes a big difference in communication. What's a great first impression? Well, we understand a good first impression is something that helps us have a second impression. A bad first impression means there will be no more impressions because somebody will immediately tune us out, close the curtains on their mind, and that's the end of that. So a good first impression is exactly that. It's not a lasting impression, but it's a first impression. We're going to talk about both of those things in just a few moments and specifically how to do it. So let's first of all talk about first impressions when we meet someone. Think for just a moment and make notes. Hopefully you're making notes or you're maybe with a group of people to discuss this. When you meet someone for the first time, that you just have a good feeling when you meet that person, what is it about that meeting that made you feel good? What is it about that initial encounter, that first vision, that first conversation, that first effect that you have on each other? What is it that makes it a positive impression? And I think there's probably several components of this. We're going to break this down into communication impact. People that study communication impact, which is how do we get where I'm thinking into somebody else's head where they understand what I'm thinking, say that there's three main dimensions of this. One, two, three. Three main dimensions. First of all are the words that we use. The words that we use. Words represent the smallest part of communication impact, but they are important. And if we can choose words carefully that are somewhat similar to the words that the person that we're trying to connect with might use, we're going to be better off and happier. For example, think for a moment, who's ever been to a lecture at your university where the lecturer, the professor, took such pride in his or her amazing vocabulary that you could only understand about every third word or every fourth word? Who's ever been there? I actually have been in that situation. When I was at Harvard, I took a number of interesting courses in politics, economics, which I enjoyed. But I remember the first time I took a course in the science faculty. The course was on geophysical theory. Geophysical theory. Why did I take that? I don't know. Geophysical theory is things like how do earthquakes form? What is plate tectonic theory of the structure of the earth? And as a liberal arts guy, not a science guy, I knew from the very beginning of that lecture that I was going to really struggle to keep up with the professor. In other words, the words that he used were perfect for an audience of students that were into sciences, perfect for an audience of people that were geophysicists. And I'm sure he was very comfortable with that. I imagine when he went home at night, he would speak to his wife and say, so how are the plate tectonics in your life today, honey? What were the P waves that you encountered? But for me, it was just like in a different planet, an alien from somewhere else. Now, he wasn't addressing his lecture to me, and that's okay. It was my fault for not being better prepared. But in general, when we meet someone that uses words that we're comfortable with and speaks in a style that we're comfortable with, then we feel more relaxed. So when we're encountering someone for the first time and we don't know what kind of words that they use, it's okay to just start with fairly simple statements. Hi, nice to meet you. How are you today? And if they say, indubitably could not be more excellent, then we know we've got somebody that's going to have that kind of level of conversation. But if somebody goes, dude, not bad, then we know it's going to have a different level of conversation. We don't have to dumb down or try to become ultra sophisticated, but we do need to figure out what are words that are simple and easy to understand. And that's really, really important. Words that are easy to understand. The Wall Street Journal is the most read business daily publication in the world. It's read by business leaders. It's read by political leaders. It's full of knowledge and information about investing, markets, technology, etc. But the Wall Street Journal, by design, is written so that it can be read and understood by a typical person who is 13 years old. 13 years old, with one exception. They try to write the front page so that it can be understood by someone who is 12 years old. Now, why would they do that? Is it not a sophisticated audience? Of course it is. But if we have our heads full of sophisticated or difficult business issues, and then we have to read a journal that is also sophisticated and full of complex information expressed in a complex style, we're not going to want to pay as much attention to it. In fact, there was a great writer and songwriter in the 70s and 80s named Billy Joel. And one of his greatest songs is where he said, "I don't want clever conversation. I don't want to ever have to work that hard. I just want someone that I can talk to. I love you just the way you are." So make sure that our word choice is straightforward and simple. When you're having a conversation with a friend of yours, and the friend of yours is using words that are just kind of short, like eh, eh, mm. Well, sometimes the best thing in the world you can do is not say anything. Just simply listen, 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 listen. So word choice is really important, but it's really not the most important thing. Let's make sure that we understand why that's true. Think for a moment. Have you ever been to a country where you don't speak any of their language? You cannot speak any of the language at all. Well, most of you are very well traveled, and of course you've had that situation. Were you somehow able to communicate anyway? Yes, you were. Yes, you were. And you did that by moving into the next level of conversation and connection, which is how we use our voices, the tone of a voice. If I'm walking through a city where I've never been before, for example, the first time I went to Nur Sultan in Kazakhstan, where they speak Russian, I speak a bit of Russian, but they also speak Kazakh. I speak no Kazakh at all. If I were to walk through the open market there and say to someone, "Hey," thousands of people in the market doing their shopping, I say, "Hey," it's not going to have much of an impact. But if I say, "Hey, hey," I'm saying exactly the same thing, but with a lot more tone, a lot more volume. People turn and look, and they quickly decide there's some crazy American in the middle of the market. But the way we use our voices is so powerful. And there's so many different ways to use our voice. One is simply through volume, like we said a moment ago. Sometimes for emphasis, we want to speak loudly. Other times, we want to get so quiet that it's really almost hard to hear. Sometimes we just get really excited. We start talking really, really fast. And other times we should slow way down. If you find it difficult to slow down, imagine there are more spaces between some of the words you use. I'm exaggerating, but sometimes people just talk so really quickly. I remember the first time I met Andres Martin, I was so impressed with the quality of his English, but the speed that he was talking was breathtaking. I thought he was going to get a ticket from the police for talking too fast. But the reality is, if we find that we're very good with speech and we talk really, really fast, it's hard for someone else to comprehend and grasp it. So the ability to slow down can actually help a good first impression. A good first impression is, again, when we have somebody that we feel comfortable with on that initial encounter. So learn to slow down, and slowing down helps us by putting pauses in between our words. If I just talk really, really fast like this, it may be a little difficult to understand where I'm going. But if I were to talk more slowly with pauses, it helps you understand me. I remember being shocked when I went to Boston the first time, because in Boston, they talk different. In fact, you don't drive a car in Boston, you drive a car. You don't park your car, you pack your car. So I thought they're missing the R's. But then I found that they take some of those R's and they put them at the end of other words. So the first time somebody said, "Are you new to the area?" The way they said it is, "So are you new to the area? Are you new to the area?" And I thought, area? What is an area? And I thought, I'm never going to be able to understand these Boston people. So even though I was an American in America, just the accent was enough to make me think, I don't think I can really quite get this Boston stuff. Every one of you has a country with many, many dialects within your country. And people on one end of the country might speak certain words in a certain way, more difficult to understand other words. So that's why it's important to slow down just a bit so that people have a chance to grasp what we're saying. And this has a lot to do with our tone of voice, our vocal quality, the vocal variety that we use. So the words that we use, our vocal variety and tempo, speed, volume, enthusiasm, animation, and sometimes just dead calmness can make a big difference in what we do. So the people that study this stuff say that words represent about 7% of communication impact. You say, is that all? Well, if you think about it, if somebody were to say something like, I'm happy, versus, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm so happy, I'm happy, we know the tone is so completely different. In fact, all of you can remember when you were growing up, your mother had a very specific way to say your name. And if she said it in that very specific way, you knew you better come running immediately. Before that, she could call your name and you could say, okay, it's not dangerous yet. But as soon as that tone of voice went up a little bit higher, Kenneth, you know it's time to run. So tone of voice is very powerful in how we use our voice. That represents roughly 38% of communication impact, or 37%. So the majority of communication impact, 55%, comes from our non-verbal expressions. Nonverbals. This includes body language, how we use our physiology, and it also includes our facial expressions and how we use all of the many muscles in our faces. First of all, body language. As I've gotten older, I've noticed I have a tendency to kind of lean forward. I don't think I'm a lazy person. I do exercise. I do climb a mountain once in a while, but it becomes easy to get lazy and just to lean over. And so just simply being aware of the need to stand up strong, shoulders back, chest out, feeling good about myself conveys a very different impression. If I come to somebody's room and I'm kind of slumped over, hey, how you doing? I don't express much enthusiasm, but shoulders back, pecs out, head held high, it conveys something very, very different. Simple body language. Now, a lot of people study this stuff and they say, well, if you're talking to somebody and they have their arms really folded tightly like this, it might mean they're very closed-minded. Well, it might mean that, but it also might mean they're just comfortable that way. So we can't read too much into body language. Now, one of the things that is important to understand about body language is the importance of physical distance. So you look at these guys in the flagpole behind me. They're very cool guys. They're having a lot of fun with their American flag back there. If I were to walk up to one of them and say hello, and I just come up and say, hey, you guys new to America? Good to see you. Welcome to the country. Whoa, how you doing? Well, it wouldn't be very difficult for them to start backing up in a big way and running as far away as they possibly can, because that is just too frightening. It's a scary thought, isn't it? So learning how to back up, learning how to have some distance. This is the reason that we always recommend in a first impression that we not get too close, even if somebody's in a handshaking mode. And last night I was with some people that I didn't really know. So they were fist bump, elbow bump, which is still okay. This is COVID times. It's all good. That we make that initial contact and then back up and give some space. This makes people feel more relaxed and more comfortable than if I first meet them and say, so how you doing? Anyway, what's up with you? First of all, I might not have brushed my teeth that morning and they might be a little bothered by that. But also it makes somebody feel like I might be wanting to encroach, gradually getting closer and closer and closer, posing some form of a threat. So we want to make sure that we have some distance from people. One of the ways to have zero connection is to have someone feel threatened in any way. So giving that bit of space helps people to judge, and then they can relax, and we see them relax and we can relax as well. So the nonverbals are so important. Now, what about facial expression? I'll talk for a moment about the word smile or smiles. In fact, you'll really enjoy this joke sharing with Mrs. Jones and her children especially. So let's say you have a 10-year-old say, Joey, do you know what the longest word in the English language is? It's the word smiles, because there's a mile between the first and the last letter. But let's talk about smiles. We all emphasize the importance of smiling. But many people are suspicious of a smile that is just too big. It's because it reminds them of every one of those really bad television commercials they've ever seen where the person says, and today only you can come down and receive this amazing offer. It's fantastic. Come on and get it. And the big old cheesy grin like this is kind of off-putting to people. I'm going to dissect the smile for just a moment. One of the fun things about being in this era that we all are in is that these little devices actually can help us reveal whether someone has an authentic smile or not. You see, most people, when they don't have an authentic smile, they smile from the cheekbones downward. Hello, how are you? Nice to see you. Yeah. But an authentic smile actually reflects from the cheekbones upward. When we smile, our eyes crinkle, they close just a little bit. An authentic, genuine smile involves the whole face, but especially the eyes. There's a guy named Duchenne, a psychologist who studied smiling. Yes, is it possible to make an entire living studying smiling? Yes, he did. And a Duchenne smile is the kind where these lines on the side of our face actually crinkle a bit because it's an authentic smile. Now, the problem with an authentic Duchenne smile is that it usually should be reserved for people that we already feel comfortable with. If it's too big a smile with somebody we don't even know and they're in a bad mood, then this is like taking a very, very hot glass in the middle of winter in the Baltics and putting it outside on a porch where it's -20. That hot glass and the -20 is going to shatter. So making a good first impression in terms of a smile often involves less of a smile. People have been raised to think if somebody looks too happy and too smiley, you should be suspicious of that person. And so we want to make sure that our smile is pleasant. We certainly don't want to approach somebody with a, hello, I am trouble for you. No, we don't want that. But if we go to the door and it's all too much like this, especially if someone's having a really tough day to themselves, they come to the door and it's like, yeah, can I help you? Can I help you? What do you need? And if I respond with, hi, it's so great to see you. It's wonderful to be here. You can almost hear the tension break, collapse. So we don't want to match them exactly. We want to have a pleasant demeanor, but don't overdo it on the smile front. Now, if they come to the door and they're like, well, hello there, how are you doing? Then it's okay to say, I'm fine. But most people are not going to do that. They're going to come to the door and say, yeah, can I help you? Hello? Mm-hmm. What's this about? And you should have a pleasant smile on your face. Pleasant, not over the top, pleasant. So how do you get better at this? Well, each one of you has a very powerful device called a mirror. It's very high tech, mirror. Go to the mirror and look at yourself. Put on the worst possible smile you can. Hello. And say, oh God, that would even scare me. And go to the opposite. And then try to strike a happy medium. Are you ready to really get crazy with me for just a minute? You ready to really get out of your comfort zone? Stretch out a smile as big as you possibly can. Just stretch it up, hold it, stretch it, stretch that jaw, stretch it, open your eyes, stretch it, hold it, stretch it, stretch. Keep doing, stretch, now let it go. What happens is when you let it go, it comes down and then it bounces back part of the way to where it used to be. It's amazing, but that bounce back, that's just about the right level of smile. So work on having a pleasant demeanor, a pleasant expression without being too much, hi, so great to see you. Because that is saying to someone, I don't care how you feel. I just want you to feel how I feel. Really, really important. The nonverbal connections, anytime we meet someone for the first time, are really important. Let's continue on this nonverbal with facial expressions. Sometimes we are raised in a home that is not a very expressive home, where people say, yes, I really love you. You're my favorite child. No, I'm really angry with you. I hate you because you really did stupid things at school today. And there's no visual cue. There's no difference whatsoever. I know what you're thinking. Oh, you must have been to Estonia. No, but what I'm saying is that people that are naturally not particularly expressive, in particular, should spend a little bit more time understanding facial expression. And if we can do that, then we'll understand that somebody that is looking at us with a sense of their eyes are furrowed, they're kind of down like this, appears like they might be angry. But the reality is they might just be concerned. They might wonder, is this posing a danger to me? And learning to recognize that expression can help us be a bit more relaxed when we approach that person. And so we realize if they're skeptical, I'm going to talk a little slower. I'm definitely not going to pose any kind of a threat. And I'm going to work as hard as I can to just be easy to talk to. Simple words, straightforward, simple. One of the best ways to build good relationships with people is to be known as a good listener. The video is called It's Not About the Nail. A nail like a hammer and a nail, right? It's not about the nail. It's not about the nail. It's about a 2-minute video, and it really speaks to the importance of being a great listener and really supporting someone else in what you do. So let's kind of review a little bit about what we've talked about. We've talked about the importance of a why, that the why has to be, it doesn't have to be, all right? You can learn to be a manipulative connector with people to make a bit more money. But the deepest satisfaction is when people that you've never even met before say to you, you know, we're really glad you came by. You're a special person. You're going to go far in life. And it's because you showed that you truly cared, that you had an energy and enthusiasm about life. This made a connection that transcends a language barrier, transcends a cultural barrier. And as a result, not only was the family happier, you were happier, and the money flowed to you. You don't have to chase the money. The money will come to you when you're better at connecting and having those good relationships, particularly those really powerful first impressions. So be a great listener, be sensitive to people. When somebody is obviously in a hurry, and this is kind of the last thing I want to share with you about connecting with people. When somebody is clearly in a hurry, they've got car keys in their hand, they're looking at their watch, and they're saying, look, I'm really busy. What's this about? I've got to get to the store, or I have a doctor's appointment. Look, I am late for an appointment. If we just say at that point, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, think again about my really hot, boiling hot glass that I take out to the negative 20 degrees outside. The best way to connect with that person is to say, then I will not delay you. My name's Dan. I'll catch you later tonight. Have a good day. So it takes practice and skill to understand the difference. When somebody says, well, we're just real busy, as opposed to, look, I'm late, I'm busy, but it'd be pretty clear when they're doing these kind of gestures. Look, I'm late, I've got to go. Keys are in their hand. They're looking a bit frantic. They've got things in their hands. So learning how to go with that flow just a little bit, to be a little bit easier to work with, that's part of connection as well. Now, the final point I want to make about connection is there's a lot of emphasis on trying to mirror somebody else's body language. If somebody smiles like this, I smile like this. If somebody crosses their arms, I cross their arms. If they do this with their fingers, I should do this with their fingers. If they go like this, I probably shouldn't do that one. Mirroring is a technique, sometimes called mimicry, that is intended to make someone feel a bit more comfortable. In other words, if they're kind of laid back in their chair like this, and I'm leaning forward, that's the opposite of mirroring. I should lean back in my chair also. If on the other hand, they're enthusiastically leaning forward, it's okay for me to lean forward. But mirroring should not be so much that it becomes mockery, where we're making fun of the person. It can be very eerie, in fact, if somebody's sitting there and they go like this, and then you go like this, and they look up to the right, and you look up to the left, so that's an exact mirror image. It's eerie, it's crazy, it's too much. So don't get too caught up in that. Just instead be sort of aware. If somebody's staying their distance back like this, head turned to the side, they're skeptical, they're a little bit frightened. So you don't need to get too close to that person. So that's just being sensitive. It's okay to try to make your body language a bit like theirs, but not to the point where it's an exact copy. That becomes mockery, and that's not much fun. The beauty about all of this is that we all still make mistakes, and we all can still continue to learn as we go through life. The older you get, the more people you'll meet from different situations, people you'll meet in different arenas, different positions in life. And you'll learn that the value of connection is important. It transcends rank, it transcends age, it transcends economics. but the ability to make somebody feel relaxed, at ease, and comfortable with us is one of the great traits of life. And I admire all of you so much for being willing to just try to learn it and to get more involved in it. So remember, think hard about your why, decide you want to be a happier person and you want to help other people be happier and more fulfilled, make the world better, and you will definitely get better and better at connecting and very much better at making good first impressions.